I'm joined by Lee Gelernt. He's the Deputy Director of ACLU's Immigrants' Rights Project. Okay, this is the data we have. ICE is detaining more than 53,500 immigrants in jails across the country, which is a new record. That number has jumped by nearly 700 in less than a week. Since late last year, ICE has detained nearly 10,000 more immigrants. What is going on with immigrant detention right now? Yeah,
it's completely unnecessary. Are there some immigrants who need to be detained? Of course, but what's happening is there's no individualized assessment, so they're detaining everyone, not just people who are flight risk or danger. We've always said, after a hearing, if they're determined to be a flight risk or a danger, then maybe you got to detain them. But right now, they're just wholesale detaining mothers, fathers, children. It's out of control. There are plenty of ways to ensure appearance, and asylum seekers in particular want to be at their hearings because they don't want to live in limbo. They want to have a permanent status, and they will show up. And at the end of the Obama administration, there was a case management system that was developed that ensured appearance at practically 97% rate.
We should say, and I want to sort of present the administration's case and get your response to it, which is that the numbers have gone up. Unquestionably. Right. There are more people coming to the border. The causes for that are a little unclear. They say, look, we're overwhelmed. We don't have the systems in place to deal with all this, and you do-gooding liberals are wringing your hands, but this is what we got to do.
Yeah, well, one of the things is the numbers are not historically high, but the other thing that's going on is all the resources are focused on law enforcement and putting people in jail rather than allocating resources to process asylum claims and hold hearings. And so if the resources were allocated differently, and so one of the things is the administration says, well, these are all families. Well, what that should say is they're not dangerous. They're just sitting down when they cross the border, say, I need asylum. So they don't need as many agents out there doing law enforcement. What they need are people to process the asylum claims.
Now, the administration of Barack Obama in 2014 started something called family detention in 2014 when it saw a similar surge at the border. It was criticized, I should say, by immigration lawyers and civil rights advocates.
And we criticized it.
And you criticized it. And ultimately, and people then were talking about its uncomfortable relationship to a camp situation. Back in 2014, it was basically ruled in violation of a consent decree called Flores, right? What is it? Is this administration doing family detention again?
You know, it's unclear. Right now, it looks like they're starting to do it, but what we're hearing is that they want to do it wholesale, and they want to get rid of the Flores consent decree. And what they basically want to do...
That's the only thing binding them from a full-scale build-out of a larger camp system.
That's right, and other constitutional rulings. But what we're hearing is that they want to do it. They want to put them all in detention centers, have them give up on their legitimate asylum claims, or process the claims so quickly that people don't get due process. And so we'll be in court, other groups will be in court to stop that, but we can't go back to a system of family detention. You know, the Obama administration did do it, but they ended it quickly, and by the end of the administration, they had figured out a way to ensure people's appearance at court hearings without detention. And right now, the conditions are so bad. I'm not one to make historical comparisons, so I'm going to leave that to others, but the conditions are horrendous. And not only that, but they are still separating children.
What do you think of what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said?
I'm going to leave that controversy to others. I'm the lawyer. I like to get the facts out. I'm going to let others make this. But we do need to focus on what is actually going on the ground, because this idea that the administration is only going after hardened criminals and that everyone's being treated fine is absolutely wrong.
Are the conditions acceptable or humane?
No, the conditions are not acceptable for either adults or children.
All right, Lee Gelernt, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.